Yes guys, Bobby back with another video. Now if this isn't your first time here, then you know that usually my content primarily focuses on fat loss, building a lean, aesthetic, dense physique using strength training, specific nutritional approaches, etc. But one thing I don't really talk about is that I'm actually a little bit of a fitness, a little bit of a bodybuilding historian, an amateur historian, let me stress, but a historian nonetheless. I love looking at the ancient techniques, because long before the days that we find ourselves in now, where you have to second guess everything you see on the internet and there is scientific evidence that supports everything but also dismisses everything at the same time. People back then were still training hard, working hard, but they were only doing it with the basics. When you're researching such topics, you do come across a few names, some very highly regarded names, that even if you've never heard of them before, you soon find out have stood the test of time because of the information that they put out there. And one such name that I came across this week was Galen. Now, Galen was a Greek medical writer, a physician at the time of the ancient Romans. He worked as a physician to gladiators themselves, but he was also very interested in medieval fighting techniques. So he was taking that historical perspective even at that time, was applying that to what he was teaching. There's this book which is called Galen's De Sanitate Tuenda. One extract that I've come across from that book is he is listing the exercises that gladiators use to train. There are certain things that we can definitely apply to our techniques, especially if you're training naturally and you want to look like a bloody Roman gladiator. These are the types of exercises you need to be doing. This is a direct excerpt. I'm going to read it now. His first professional appointment was as surgeon to the gladiators in Pergamon. In his tenure as surgeon, he undoubtedly gained much experience and practical knowledge in the anatomy from the combat wounds he was compelled to treat. After 4 years, he immigrated to Rome, where he attained a brilliant reputation as a practitioner and public demonstrator of anatomy. Among his patients were the emperors Marcus Aurelius, Lucius Verus, Commodus, and Septimius Severus. Now, one interesting thing that I've came across is during that time, emperors themselves would actually fight. But the thing is, these fights were obviously fixed in their favor. They would be much weaker opponents, or if they were fighting animals, for example, it would be a much easier task, opposed to the lower ranking gladiators who would obviously be taking part in much more physical and aggressive combat. Here's the important stuff. Galen divides his exercises into 3 categories, which we may term strong, rapid, and violent. Violent being a combination of the preceding 2. These are the strong exercises. So I'm reading through them. I think these are much more endurance and strength based. Obviously, strong being strength based. So number 1, you've got digging. Number 2, picking up something heavy. Sounds exactly like a deadlift. 3, picking up something heavy and walking with it. Farmer's carry. Number 4, walking uphill. For me, I would say walking uphill, walking on an incline would be for fat loss, but I assume that this was a very, very steep incline. It's going to take a lot of endurance and power through the legs. Number 5, climbing a rope using the hands and feet, commonly done to train boys in wrestling schools. Number 6, hanging onto a rope or beam for as long as possible. Dead hang, one of the best exercises that I have spoken about before. Number 7 and 8, it says the exact same thing. I presume this is a typing mistake, but it says for both of them, holding the arms straight out in front with fists closed. I'm starting to think about isometrics here. Tension, pushing, holding this and tensing as hard as possible, especially when we read the next few exercises. So number 9 is holding the arms out while a partner tries to pull them down. So this is definitely applying tension to keep them in position. The preceding 3 exercises, but while holding something heavy. So you got something heavy in your hands now, and again, you've got to go against that pull of gravity and against that resistance to keep it in place. So that is going to be tension throughout your whole arm. It's going to build up great strength. For 11, breaking loose from a waist lock. Obviously very useful in combat. I'm not combat trained myself. I've never really done any combat sports, but obviously I can understand the purpose of it. Number 12, holding onto a person trying to escape from the waistlock. So you're looking at your grip strength there. 13, picking up a man who is bending over at the hips and lifting him and swinging him around. Number 14, doing the same but bending oneself at the hips also when picking him up. Now I'm thinking of boulder lifts, things like that, strongman exercises that people are still doing today. 15, pushing chest to chest, trying to force the opponent backwards. So you're taking your arms out of the equation, but you're looking at pure upper body strength and power. 15, hanging from another's neck, attempting to drag him down. The last couple in this, it says you need to have a wrestling pit. So if you've got one of them in your back garden, you're set. 8, entwine your partner with both legs around one of his and try to apply a choke or force his head backwards. B, the same but using only one leg to entwine the opponent's leg closest to yours. And C, the same but using both legs to entwine both of the opponent's legs. Now I'm not qualified to really talk on these grappling exercises because I've never had any training, I've got no experience. I'm not going to act like I understand exactly the dynamics of grappling, of fighting, of wrestling, etc. Let's move on to the rapid exercises, and as you can probably guess, these are very much more high intensity based, such as number 1, running, number 2, shadow boxing, number 3, boxing, number 4, hitting punching bags, number 5, throwing and catching a small ball while running, making it more challenging. Number 7, standing on the balls of the feet, put the arms up in the air and rapidly and alternatively bring them back and forth. Stand near a wall if you're afraid of losing one's balance. So that sounds similar to sort of a cross trainer, isn't it? Sort of a cross trainer, or even climbing. Number 8, rolling on the wrestling ground rapidly by oneself. So this is all about agility. Yes, if you're in a fighting pit, rolling rapidly to practice evading your opponent. Number 9, rapidly changing place with people next to one in a tightly packed group. Okay, so obviously that is escaping your opponent. 10, jumping up and kicking both legs together backwards. 11, kicking the legs forward alternatively. Number 12, move the arms up and down rapidly with open or closed fists, increasing in speed. On to the last part of the list, guys. Thank you if you're still here. Violent. Now these sound more like the killer blows. So you've got digging rapidly. I assume digging rapidly, you're imagining you're down there, you're digging as fast as possible. I'm imagining that is punching. It's building that speed and technique of punching. I'm not a fighter, like I keep saying. Imagine that's what the idea behind it is. Casting the discus, jumping repeatedly with no rest, throwing heavy spears and moving fast while wearing heavy armor. That sounds quite self-explanatory. And the last one here. Any of the strong exercises executed rapidly. Swinging, jumping weights forward and back and lifting them up and down, chin-ups and so on. So doing all of those strong exercises at a higher speed, at a higher intensity. Finally, last exercise is listed. This is just listed as other exercises. We're nearly there, guys. Walking, bending up and down repeatedly at the hips, lifting a weight up from the ground, holding up an object for a long time, full and loud breathing, placing 2 weights on the ground approximately 6 feet from each other, picking up one on the left with the right hand and then the one on the right with the left hand, then in turn placing them back where they came from. So that sounds like it's working on core muscles, stability. There it is, guys. That is the list, and you can really see the impact that these sort of teachings have carried over throughout the centuries into modern training methods, right? You've got your strongman exercises, you've got your rapid, your high intensity exercises, and although none of us saw these fighters in person, so we can't verify what they look like. that is one thing that crosses my mind. You know, when you see those historical comedy movies and someone's painting like a ugly king, but they're making him look so handsome. We don't know if the representation of these Roman gladiators was accurate or not, but you have to assume that, considering they were fighting for their lives, for the entertainment of the masses, that they were the elite athletes of the time, training with the greatest purpose of all, which is to survive Unlike me now, just training to be ripped and shredded. Hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope you found it interesting, and I think I'm going to vary my content up a little bit and maybe start to introduce a little bit more of this fitness history, if that's what we're into, because obviously I am natural. It's not about being natural versus unnatural. That's not the focus here. It's not about winning a competition, but it's about maximizing your natural potential. And by looking at historical information like this, I think we can find some clues, find some information of the best way to go. Like, comment, subscribe if you found it interesting, guys. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.